You're listening to Too Much on Her Plate, the podcast for smart, busy women who are tired of running on the hamster wheel and are ready to create freedom from overeating and emotional eating. I'm your host, clinical psychologist, author, and a smart, busy woman too, Dr. Melissa McCreary. You all, I have some stuff to talk about today, and it is so powerful. It is something that I think just about every woman needs to hear, especially if you are somebody who considers yourself busy. There is so much stuff that we just don't believe is possible, and we give up on ourselves when we don't believe things are possible, or there are things that we believe aren't possible for us. Somehow the rest of the world can have these things, but we are so busy and our to-do list is so important that they can't be possible for us. I just want to tell you that I just got off a coaching call with a client who was so busy and so overwhelmed 6 months ago that honestly, she could not think of having space in her life to do one thing for her. And we just had this incredible conversation, part of which was about how much more peaceful and calm she's feeling and how she's found these ways, simple ways, things that she thought were not going to make a difference, to slow herself down. And here's the thing that I wish I could just implant in everybody's brain, but it's not possible until you experience it for yourself. She has slowed down. She has allowed herself more space. And I said, well, you're not getting less done, are you? And she said, absolutely not. There is something so essential about giving ourselves the space to do what we need to do. And when we do that, it makes everything flow better. And it also can help us clear up a lot of patterns that we don't like in our lives with mindless activities or coping activities like overeating. So take a moment to listen to this episode because there's some really important stuff in here that is simple, but can have a huge impact on your life. In this episode, I'm going to talk about one of the most common setups for overeating, at least for busy women. And there's a very good chance that this is something that is happening completely outside of your awareness. Tell me if any of these sound familiar to you. A client I had just begun working with had been trying to lose the same weight for as long as she could remember. And what she couldn't get a handle on was emotional eating and overeating at night. She would eat the way she wanted to all day, eat well, follow her plan. But once she walked through the front door, her plans and her intentions with food, they just fell apart. Another client who travels a lot for work, she used to travel a lot for work, but at the time, she was stuck in a pattern of getting on track with movement and exercise and eating and taking time for herself. And then she would just see it crumble into inactivity and old habits and stress eating whenever she hit the road. And then there's someone else I worked with who was incredibly busy running her successful company. And she was hell-bent on making time for herself because she wanted to do better with her own stress and she wanted to have more fun. But no matter how firm her resolve to make these changes, after work, she'd hit this wall of exhaustion and not feel any ability to motivate herself to do the stuff that she knew would make her feel better. When I started working with each of these women, they felt trapped and frustrated with themselves and completely ineffective with the plans that they kept making over and over and over again to change. The thing is, their very different situations were being caused by the same problem. And it's one that I see creating a lot of stress, emotional eating, irritability, negativity, and a loss of confidence in the ability to make changes for many women. Let's talk about the power of transitions. And let's talk about whether you're using eating as a pause button. When you're busy, the day can seem like an endless list of things to do, right? And you can feel like you're always racing off to do the next thing. Stress and overwhelm make it worse, and our desire to be productive can lead to doing and more doing. Always moving to the next thing, thinking about a million things at once, checking your email while you're waiting for Zoom to log you into your next meeting, right? Everything is always happening. And when this happens, we tend to ignore the transitions in our life. Well, we don't necessarily ignore them. We just plow right through them. We book ourselves over them, and we never stop going and doing and reacting to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing in front of us. and then we overeat. Members in my Missing Piece program were sharing the places that they are still struggling with overeating, and it started to become clear that each person who had a very different struggle was actually talking about a version of the same thing. Overeating and emotional eating crop up in the space between things when we're in transition. Let me give you a few examples of transitions. Transitions are coming home from work, going on or getting back from vacation. A transition is shifting from the work week to the weekend, or finishing a project or a meeting and then moving on to the next task. You're in transition when you're in the car on the way to the next thing, or when you're at work or working when one meeting is over and it's time to dive into the next project. A big transition is after dinner and before bed, or even looking at your to-do list and not feeling clear about where to start. Transitions are a place of disruption between one pattern or flow, like being at work, and another. Arriving home or leaving your office and walking into the rest of your house and stepping into the things that you do there and the role that you have in that part of your life. Grabbing something to eat at these times of transition can be a reaction often made on autopilot. Here's the thing, if you don't manage transitions, you put yourself at a disadvantage, a big disadvantage. While productivity experts are absolutely clear about the importance of paying attention to transitions, busy high performers can be terrible at this. In fact, it's a major cause of getting caught in vicious cycles, ongoing patterns with overwhelm, overload, and overeating. Transitions are a place where many smart, busy women grab something to eat mindlessly out of habit, as a way of procrastinating the next thing or getting an energy boost or even rewarding yourself while at the same time continuing to forge ahead. When you're in transition, you're not in the flow, you're not in the groove, and that discomfort, that can be another cue to reach for something to eat. But wait, there's even more. Busy people are not very good at paying attention to transitions, and by this I mean not very good at pausing long enough to check in with yourself and do what you need to do to switch gears successfully to move into that next activity. There's a tendency to rush on to the next thing without even pausing to catch your breath. Or worse, can be a tendency to overlap activities so there's no transition at all. That's what happens when you're always running behind or multitasking or using the non-existent time in between things to text or check your email or make a quick phone call. Forging ahead might feel necessary or it might feel productive in the moment, but not creating pauses and transitions in your day, it's a recipe for disaster. To repeat myself, by transitions, I'm talking about the shift between activities, or the shift between relationships or locations, and even the shift between lifestyle paces that happen for all of us all day long. Transitions are challenging, and even the best transition can be a source of stress. Have you ever gone on vacation and realized that your body and your mind took a few days to figure out how to be on vacation? That's you in transition. Transitions work best if we acknowledge them and pay attention to what we need to navigate them successfully. Missing transitions or rushed transitions or even overlapping activities, which are denied transitions, are a recipe for mindless eating and emotional eating, stress eating, even comfort eating. We are ignoring transitions when we expect ourselves to shift seamlessly from one activity or one part of our life to another without even breaking our stride. And this happens a lot for busy working women, busy working moms who might race out of their office to find themselves putting dinner on the table before they've even taken a deep breath or changed their clothes. Have you ever ended work and then slid in the door feeling, off because you're still digesting your crazy day? You're still thinking about where you were and now you are somewhere else? That's you not quite transitioned or not transitioned at all. It's no surprise that evening is often described as the most stressful part of the day, and it's the time when most people overeat. A big reason is the multiple transitions that are happening in a busy household. Work to home, sometimes school to home, professional to head chef and bottle washer, or professional to mom or working really hard all day to, oh, now this is my time to relax, CEO to loving partner, etc., etc., etc. You get it, right? So how can you use transitions to change patterns of overeating and emotional eating? Let's talk about that. Here's an easy recipe for handling transitions without overeating. Now, for best results, I want you to resist the urge to overcomplicate this. Keep it simple. The first thing you want to do is to start noticing and recognizing the transition points in your day and in your life. Now, I'll give you a hint. The chances are pretty good that these are also some of the most challenging points in your day. Once you've identified your transition points, create small ways to pause and get a little bit more centered or check in with yourself before you move on to the next thing. The easiest way to do this is to start creating teeny tiny rituals or habits that you do, things that you do when you are transitioning. So by small, I mean small. Things like getting up and stretching, or go and fill your water glass in between meetings, or take 10 deep breaths when you get home from work. Walk around your office or your house. Change your clothes. Wash your face when you get home from work. Brew a cup of tea before you start the next thing. Or be really decadent and take a 10-minute break. I know. Catch your breath. Ask yourself what you need to be your best in the next segment of your life. Make a list if you have to do that. Pay attention to whether there's residue from the thing that you just left that needs to be put away or dealt with or shaken off. Take the notes you need to take. Clean off your desk. Put that file away. Do something tangible to signify that you're shifting gears. Like I said, wash your face when you get home from work. Change your clothes. Put on some music. Or take the time to unpack and put away your suitcase when you get home from a trip. And you will be taking trips again. A client shared with me a lovely ritual that she created of stopping to light a candle when she gets home. It's her way of marking the transition. Another client marks the transition into her mealtime by stopping and blessing her food. As you start to recognize the transitions in your life, and as you start to pause and get grounded and check in with yourself, I want you to pay more attention to the role that eating plays during these times. Look for hidden hungers and pay attention to whether you're using the food to feed them. You might amaze yourself with what you discover. And if you don't know what I'm talking about by hidden hungers, make sure you check out episode 1 of the podcast and look in the show notes and find the information about how to take the hidden hungers quiz. Pay attention to your transitions, pause, center, and then move forward. It can be this simple. Now, there's one more thing. If your life is so overbooked that it feels like you barely have transitions, then you're probably guilty of major overlapping. Try giving yourself the grace of padding your schedule with 5 extra minutes between things. I know, on the one hand, that may seem huge, and on the other hand, that may seem like a very little thing. It's funny how our brains work. Everyone needs space in between things. Everyone needs transitions. Now, when you start to give yourself padding in between things, which honestly isn't even padding, it's just the time that human beings need to transition. But if you've been stuck in this pattern, you might have to overcome the discomfort of, quote unquote, having extra time. Or you might have to overcome a temptation to squeeze in just one more thing, right? I have a few extra minutes, I can do that extra thing. When you allow yourself to have the padding, when you allow yourself to acknowledge the human need to have a transition between activities, you'll notice pretty quickly how much better it feels to have that transition time and how you feel more in control with eating and actually with your life. If you want more help with this, and if you want to be part of a group of like-minded women who are making powerful changes with their relationship with food, then check out my free masterclass where you can learn all about my Missing Piece program and get yourself in there. Honoring transitions does not require a lot of time, but doing so can have a huge impact. Take a breath before you move on to the next thing, because guess what? Coming to the end of this episode leads you right into your next transition. I'll see you soon. If you like what you've heard, subscribe to the Too Much on Her Plate podcast and take 30 seconds to leave a review. If you're ready to tackle your hidden hungers, then come on over to toomuchonherplate.com. That's muchonherplate.com and take the Hidden Hungers quiz. It's free, and not only will you be able to pinpoint your best place to start, you'll get the resources you need to take your next best step.